Whoa! Welcome to the What's Up Ready podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host, Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Hit them all so you can keep up with all of our episodes. Lives, we're back doing lives again, so keep up with that. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. You can see us talking about right now the television show, the
Secret
Invasion. That's right. My mind went blank as soon as
on
I
Disney
started that.
Plus.
So, and then we'll be doing Ahsoka in August, and there's some other things we may do some special episodes for that we're not going to do weekly. But yeah, we're going to be live for a minute, so keep up with those and the bell notification. I'll help you do that. So with that, we also appreciate helping to grow the podcast, which you can do not only by hitting those buttons, but by telling a friend about us. Go find your old godfather / archaeologist, famous old man, and tell him about us. I think we'd be his kind of cup of tea, grumpy and
really old on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Or really getting really old on the outside. I noticed as we do these, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I'm when we started, I had like a couple of patches of brown beard. I'm down to one. Like the rest.
You're welcome for stressing you out so much.
Say it's all your fault, dude. That it's turning white all across the board. So I'm getting there. Yeah. So there it is. And with that should lead you to know that we are here to talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It was released June 30th, 2023. It was written by Jez Butterworth and John Henry Butterworth, and kind of by David Kopp. I know. There's a joke in there somewhere.
There's so many jokes in there somewhere.
I feel like some of them might get us canceled, but there's at least one or two in there. It was directed by James Mangold. It stars Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Karen Allen, kind of, Antonio Banderas, John Rhys Davies, Shawnette Renee Wilson, Thomas Kretschmann, Toby Jones, Olivier Richters, Boyd Holbrook, and Mads Mikkelsen. An archaeologist, Indiana Jones, races against time to retrieve a legendary artifact that can change the course of history. If you haven't seen this movie and you want to avoid spoilers, now's the time to pause the podcast. Go watch the movie, come back, pick up where you left off, because we are going to spoil the shit out of this thing.
Oh, yes, we are.
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and get the elephant in the room covered, because they did a really good job with the previews of this movie, hiding or making it look like it was going to be better than it was. And I have a few things to talk about it with, good things, bad things, but de-aging in movies has become this new thing.
I hate it. It's it's rough, because I think it's a good tool to use.
Yeah.
If you use it correctly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best instances I've seen in movies or TV is when they did it in The Mandalorian with Luke Skywalker.
Correct.
Okay, because what you get is about 30 seconds, maybe a little bit less, of where you see that it's, a de-aged Mark Hamill.
Yep.
That's all you need. What we get here is a fucking 25-minute sequence of de-aged Harrison Ford that looks like horse shit.
And it's played. Here's the difference, though, Alec, and this is where I think people get it wrong, is Mark Hamill did not play the face of Mark Hamill for the de-aging process. It was played by a different actor who is the age that Mark Hamill would have been or was while playing a young Luke Skywalker. They then transform that face into Mark, and he looks very similar to Mark Hamill. Like, he could play Luke Skywalker without the facial change, right?
Right.
That's why, because what they're doing with this de-aging, and the reason it didn't work with Will Smith, it didn't work with, and the reason it worked with Tarkin and Peter Cushing is because, again, it was a different facial model that they built Cushing's face around. Harrison Ford, Will Smith, Even Sir Anthony Hopkins, when they do it with these gentlemen and ladies that are older, and they're literally taking that same face but pulling the age out of it, it does not work when they speak. Here's the other part of that, to kind of to your point, is I'm okay with it, and it's worked when they do a quick shot of just the face. Harrison Ford, when they pull that hood off, looks amazing. I'm like, fuck, that's my Indiana Jones from when I was a child. The instant he opens his mouth, it goes to fucking hell, because they cannot do mouths. For some reason, realistic mouths, we saw it with Superman, they cannot do it and have it look good. I will give, this one was one of the better ones, but it was still bad. Bad enough that it's distracting.
Yeah, and it was bad. I think the length of it's what got me too, is where I had more time to see the bad.
Yeah.
Because typically I'm not one that picks up on effects.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But I was watching this, and watching it just kept going and going and going and going. And I was like, oh, this is so bad. And there's even a point where, like, young Indy gets on top of the train, and you have the worst animation for running on a train. Where I was
like, my God, it was terrible. I was like, what the fuck am I watching right now?
I was like, oh my gosh, I could do that.
They spent all their money de-aging the man, and we're like, we got no budget left to make it look like a human being running on a train. It looked like an alien. I was like, did we just go to like Signs, and they just pulled that weird ass fucking backward kneed alien and put him on a train?
I was watching this, and I was like, oh fuck, because I knew, and for me to pick up on it, when I don't pick up on anything or have it play this much of a, I guess, deterrent in my viewing, is huge.
Yeah.
Because like I didn't even knock off points for the shitty CGI in The Flash.
It's true.
Because one, I didn't notice it enough to where it made it an issue. This I noticed.
Yeah.
And so I knew it was bad, because I was sitting there going, fuck, CGI is shit. I'm like Mattson now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll give you the running on the train. I actually outweighed. Oh no, it was bad.
And I don't know if it's because like Oshi and I saw this in IMAX, so it was like up there in your face. There's no way you could possibly miss this, Alec, versus seeing it on a regular theater screen. But oh my gosh, I mean the same exact thing. Pull the hood off. There's Indiana Jones. Open him out. What the fuck is this?
Yep.
And it makes it worse when you put him next to Toby Jones.
Oh, I know.
Who they didn't de-age.
Yeah. Because they didn't have to, because that doesn't age. But like
it's just the contrast where you can see that there's, Toby Jones ages well, but you can see that there's age in there.
Sure.
Right. And I think that if you had just maybe used makeup, right? We've talked about it before, practical effects on Harrison Ford, you can get the picture. Yeah. Because that whole sequence as well is so fucking choppy that you could cut in and out and keep it to where you wouldn't know it was Harrison. It was an old man Harrison Ford doing all the stunts. It was a stunt guy.
Yeah.
And you could do enough with makeup and prosthetics to get him looking younger, or just a little bit younger, because again, we're later than all the other Indiana Jones movies. They take place 36, 39. We're in 45. So you can play off that a little bit. He's aged about a decade from the first film. So you can work within that with practical effects, and then it does not look as bad as this.
And I'll even go one step further and say, look, this is a 2.5 hour movie. It doesn't need to be 2.5 hours, because you have a almost 30-minute sequence at the beginning of this movie. And look, I understand why they did it. I get it.
You have to have punching National Socialists in an Indiana Jones movie.
Exactly. But it doesn't, we didn't need that entire sequence to get to the point of the dial being split in half. They have one half. Indiana Jones steals it from the National Socialists and runs away, right? Gets away. He does what Indiana Jones does. And I'm sorry, But if you haven't seen the first 4 Indiana Jones, 3, let's just, I'm going to
3.
rate. Yeah. If you
3 and a
haven't
half.
seen the first 3 real Indiana Jones movies, then that's your problem. I don't need you to introduce me to the character of Indiana Jones through this shitty CGI sequence of 30 minutes. I'm looking for a 5 to 10 minute introduction where we get to see that really cool reveal of they pull off the bag and it shows Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford looking like my Indiana Jones from the 1980s and 90s. And then you can show, you don't have to have the action sequence, at least not up close and personal, and it doesn't need to be 30 minutes long. In fact, you could even cut to the point where it's at the end and you show, like, start on the fucking train where he's fighting Mads Mikkelsen's character. Mads Mikkelsen gets smacked by the freaking, which the fact that he survived that with no physical scarring is bullshit. But you show that scene, him getting knocked off the train, Toby Jones and whatever shooting. I mean, there's a couple of things you could have cut that down to a 5 to 10 minute sequence, introducing the dial, and moved on, and we wouldn't have nearly as much this problem because everything could have been far scenes, or, you know, again, to your point, don't de-age him to what he looked like in the
1980.
Temple of Doom. Do it to where it's 10 years later, right? So it's just one of those things where I'm like, geez, like, it just was too much.
If only there was a template they could follow, like in the third movie, where they do that exact fucking thing. After the prologue, you get Indiana Jones on a boat trying to recover an artifact.
Yep.
From a guy right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And it works. Go figure.
But that's what you get when you have Lawrence Kasdan and George Lucas writing a story versus the Butterworths. No offense to the Butterworths, but
stick to making goddamn syrup.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just like, nope, that didn't work for me. And, like, look, the Butterworths have written some great movies. They wrote Ford v. Ferrari. They wrote Black Mass, Edge of Tomorrow. But you're not dealing with a new property here or something that you're writing, like, from an actual story like Ford versus Ferrari. You're walking into one of, if not the most iconic characters in cinematic history. Like, you can play the theme to Indiana Jones and everybody, that's Indiana Jones. Like, it spans generations, right? This is an icon, and you're writing for that. You better figure that shit out, because you did too much with this movie. I'll just say that right out the gate.
Way too much.
And you didn't learn the lessons from the past one, which we'll talk about.
No, oh my gosh.
But yeah. In fact, let's just jump right into that, because look, this
was my biggest beef.
Yeah. And I want to preface this with, we're going to shit on this movie a lot. If you haven't noticed, we're going to shit.
Prepare.
But I want to say, and so let's separate this. Alec texted me the other night, or yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before?
It was yesterday.
And he was saying, it was not good things about this movie. And I had already seen it. I saw it the night before, and I didn't hate it. So I won't go too much more into that. But there is a part that I did hate, and we're going to talk about it now. But I want to preface it with the fact that leading up to the last 40 minutes of this movie, 30 minutes of this movie, I actually enjoyed it. I felt like while there was the beginning I could have done without it because it was too long and the CGI bothered me. From the moment we see Old Man Jones to the point that they get on the fucking plane at the end of the movie, I loved it. I had a great time. I enjoyed it. Was it perfect? No. But it felt like Indiana Jones. It felt like a pretty decently Indiana Jones story. There was some good comedy in there. There was some great banter, dialogue, some cameos, some great characters, a new character that I was like, okay, that's fun. But the problem is it was sandwiched by these two pieces of a movie that pissed me off so bad, because it was poor writing and poor decision making that ruined, almost ruined completely everything in between for me. I'm sure it ruined everything in between for you.
Oh, it did.
So what we're talking about is the ending of this movie. And look, Indiana Jones has always had some very mystical, sci-fi, out of this world elements to it. But until Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they never slapped you in the face so heavy-handed with the fucking aliens. And now with this one, to Alec's question, is time travel any better than aliens?
Because, and it's funny because this came up because Ocean and I were talking about it, and Ocean really liked this movie when we went to go see it.
Yeah.
Or she enjoyed it enough. She's like, that was Indiana Jones. I was like, was it? And she's like, yeah, there was no aliens. And I was like, they went back 2,000 fucking years to the Siege of Syracuse.
Yeah.
Is that any better than seeing aliens? And she kind of stopped. She's like, oh, yeah, maybe not. I was like, don't get me wrong. Like, Kingdom of Crystal Skull is still the bottom of the barrel for me.
Yeah.
But this, going back in time, the way they made it work, I was like, oh my gosh, this is stupid. Because the original three, like you said, there's mystical elements, but they stay within the realm of possible reason.
Correct.
Right? You know, in Raiders, we're looking for the Lost Ark of the Covenant, right? Nobody knows anything about it. Nobody knows where it is. And they work within this to give it a supernatural capacity.
Yep.
Right? And then we never see anything more of the Ark. Right? And then same thing in Temple of Doom. You have this cult that gets built around. A semblance of reason could possibly be there. Or you could even explain those two things away to, storytelling.
Sure.
Right? When someone tells a story, it gets bigger and bigger with each telling.
Yep.
It's like, then you go Last Crusade. And it's like, okay, same thing. We are operating within the realm of reason with a little bit added of this, mystical component. And then we go fucking dog trash to where the mystical component is all that goddamn matters.
Yeah, in the last aliens and like refrigerators saving you from a nuclear blast. Like it was so outrageous. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was stupid. It was terrible.
And then this was closer for me. This was closer to Crystal Skull than it was to the original three.
Oh, was it?
Which is I was just like, oh my gosh, they were going the right way, but they didn't go enough.
Yeah.
To be operating within, once again, realm of reason with a little bit of a mystical component that gets thrown in. Yeah. And this mystical component is like a 3-minute sequence in most of it, maybe 5-10 minutes at the most. And it's, at the end, right? It's like the part of the climax of the movie is where we see the mystical part.
Yeah.
And this was a good, 40 minutes before the end where we are in mystical zone. I was like,
yeah.
I mean, I would have rather watched the Siege of Syracuse movie, to be honest.
Sure.
Let's do that for 2.5 hours.
Sure.
But it was just to me, it was such a stupid thing.
Yeah.
And the only difference between, one of the only differences between Kingdom of Crystal Skull and this one for me was they took out the Soviet Russians from the Crystal Skull and went back to punching National Socialists.
It's fair. That's fair.
To where I was just like, ruined. You had such great potential, and the trailer makes it seem like, oh, we're going back to Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
This is the roots. This is the Indiana Jones that everybody's grown up with and loved.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there going, fuck you guys.
Well, and I think that's my issue. Like, and I'll say I loved once we got past the intro, and even the intro I didn't hate. I just hate the CGI because it was unnecessary in my opinion. And the fact that it was so long. I didn't need them traversing the entire train. That was, if you write correctly, that could have been a 10-minute top scene and we're done. I'll stop beating that horse. Everything in the middle, like I said, I was enjoying it. Like it felt, and again,
like an Indiana Jones movie, it follows the formula.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong,
Indiana Jones messes up time and time again, but somehow still ends up doing the right thing.
Yep. And don't get me wrong, like I could still tell that this was written not by Lawrence Kasdan and Lucas and those phenomenal writers of the 80s and 90s that actually got dialogue correct, were very good at storytelling, but it was good enough that I was like, yes, we're back to form. And I like the old Indiana. I like the fact that he was hurting and he was old and he was like, this is bullshit. I'm having a hard time on this fucking
My
horse.
shoulders shot 9 times, once by your dad.
Yeah, like, and he's bitching about I had to drink the blood of
Golly.
and it was like tortured with voodoo.
Yeah.
That shit was hilarious. But I'm with you, and I think this could have been saved by some, because it was like they're like, yep, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull sucked. Let's not do that again. And then they got to the end and they went, but let's do this part again. Because that was not the worst. What? That was the worst fucking part of the movie. Like, if you hadn't thrown aliens in there, I might have been able to swallow the rest of it. But no. They had to go. And again, they could have saved this by having like a couple of lines of dialogue in the movie where, because they almost did it, right? He was like, well, there's possible fissures in time. Archimedes figured out that there's, through whatever, there's fissures in time. Okay, that was a cool line. One more line but it's all theoretical. What does that mean? A fissure in time? Who knows? Even if this did exist, you don't know where you might end up, right? And then they wait until, because I would have loved the line of Indiana Jones on the plane, like trying to fuck with Mads Mikkelsen's character, saying, the Earth, this was 2,000 years ago, he figured out. You don't know where the hell you're going. All you had to do, like, put that in earlier where he's talking to Helena and he's like, look, this is dangerous. Even if it does work, which is always Indy's thing. He's always been a skeptic. Mm-hmm. It was always just, these are artifacts that belong in a museum. They don't have mystical properties, right? Then they turned out to have some level of mystical property, to your point, within a realm of, I don't watch it and go, well, that's completely unreasonable. I go, that's just reasonable enough, right? We don't know what the Ark of the Covenant does. Okay, it melts fucking assholes' faces off if you look at it. I can believe that. It's weird it's one of those things that nobody knows enough about to be able to say, no, that wouldn't happen. Voodoo's another thing. We don't fucking know enough about actual voodoo, except for those that maybe practice voodoo, to be able to say,
know.
Yeah, to be able to say that he could reach fucking through your skin, or maybe he's super strong, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's a level of it that I'm like, I can't unexplain it, so I'm okay leaving it unexplainable and within the realm of possibility. Even, in the third one, you have
Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail. We don't know. You don't know. And there's exactly, so that's what they lean on, is there's just enough that you don't know. In this one, there's a couple of problems. You're making it 30 years later, 40 years later, in a world where science is developed enough to go, time travel probably isn't ever going to happen. On top of that, you still could have kept it in the realm of believable, because you're in the 1940s, 70s, and you say, okay, it's been 2,000 years. Even if it is real, the timing's off. You don't know where you're going. You need to think this through. Again, give Jones his ability. But it was like, once he figured it out, it was like, oh, we got to go time travel. Wait, what the fuck is happening right now? And then they lead into this part where, like you say, you get on this plane. As soon as they get on the plane and they start flying and you see this big gap in the sky, I'm even okay with that. Show me something that looks like a fissure. Okay. Fly it right up to the fucking thing. Fly by it. Jones gets out of his thing, or she comes in and saves him. The kid crashes the other plane into him. Any number of things can disrupt them flying through the fissure. You fly through. And even if you want to send like the big plane through the fissure, because they've already shown you Archimedes's tomb that has the weird fucking bent propeller on the plane. And so as soon as I saw that, I'm like, God damn it, they're gonna fucking fly it. They're gonna land somewhere where but have like the one crashing through, and it goes through the fucking fissure, and we never see it again, but we know Archimedes does.
Yeah,
right, because we've seen it on his tomb, but we don't know where you go. We just know somehow Archimedes saw that plane. That's weird. We don't know how he saw it. And then they fly off and we stay in 1970s. That's all I need. Even you can even fly by the fissure and see the Battle of Syracuse happening from a distance. But I don't want to see Archimedes. I don't want to have a conversation with Archimedes. I don't want Indiana Jones to wonder whether or not he should stay at the fucking siege of Syracuse. Come on.
At that point, I was like, yeah, stay.
Yeah, exactly.
You already fucked it up. Let old Indiana Jones live out his happy days trying to fend off the Roman Empire.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at that point, you ruined it.
Yeah, it was done. As soon as they landed, it like flew through the fissure, and I'm like, oh no. I mean, it was instant. I was like, God damn it. They just fucked this shit up. Mm-hmm. And you can't recover. And then when they were talking about him staying, I'm like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. Indiana Jones gives up like that? Come on. This guy's fucking been through so much, and he's just going to quit because of he's in ancient Syracuse, like he's on Sicily and whatever. It's like, no, he wouldn't. And then I'm like, where'd they find enough runway to take that plane off again? Like, and I thought that thing was closing in a few minutes. It was pretty fucking far away. Fuel, there was it went off the rails the instant they flew through that fucking fissure, and they didn't need to fit a typical Indiana Jones storyline.
I'll take it one step further. It went off the rails as soon as they got in the bomber and added on that Fast and Furious fucking runway to take off.
That's
like
fair.
That thing stretched from miles, the entire length of Syracuse. That was how far they were driving on that runway.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, it like you said, where you can I wouldn't even go with glimpse the battle, but the fissure closes behind the bomber. You don't know what happened to him, but you know something did because Archimedes has the watch. Yeah. And Archimedes has, this painting or this etching on his grave that has a propeller.
Yeah.
Because that's enough of an Indiana Jones story where you don't know exactly what happened or why it happened or how it happened. All you know is something did happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't need to have all this explaining away.
Yeah.
The mystery, the mystique is what makes Indiana Jones. And it makes the line that he says make sense, where he's like, I don't believe in magic, but I've seen some things.
Yes.
Right. It just shores up that piece of dialogue and makes it make sense versus now. It's like, well, okay, well, now what? You got to believe in something.
Yeah.
Because you've now seen more than things.
Yeah.
So it didn't fit.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like Indiana Jones, the previous movies, except for Kingdom of the fucking Crystal Skull, the first three, the good movies, you can go back, and to your point, you can say he goes home and goes, I don't know what the fuck I saw. I saw some shit. Shit was weird. I can't explain it, but I don't know what it was. He can't do that now. Like,
yeah,
he has two movies where he goes home and he goes, I met some aliens and I went back to fucking ancient Syracuse and watched the siege and almost got killed by a Roman soldier. Like, he can't, there's no way he can go home and go, I don't know what the hell happened. Versus if that plane flies into it and we just see it disappear, it could have gone behind a cloud, right? It could have fucking fallen. And you can go, some shit happened. Archimedes had a watch.
Yeah.
Looked kind of like one that some National Socialist scientist had. I can't explain it. Yeah, I just was like, I hate that they were like, no, we need the and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The shock and awe, dude, you do not need to shock and awe. In fact, it doesn't work in most cases, especially when you're dealing with an already established property that is iconic, that is as good as it gets in the first three. Mm-hmm. Leave it the fuck alone, which takes me to my next point. And this is going to, I think when we talk about this is going to expand beyond Indiana Jones. But
oh, yes,
because I don't think it's just this person we're going to talk about. There are other people that people just need to leave the fuck alone. But will you motherfuckers leave George Lucas alone? Just fucking stop it. Stop trying to write stories as good as him. Even his partner, Larry Kasdan, they brought him in to try to clean up the Star Wars, the end of the sequel trilogy. And again, I don't hate the sequel trilogy for the most part, but I do hate, I don't like the third one very much because they got lazy on it and got scared and went back to going against, like getting away from Lucas. They got scared of it and they went back to what they thought would be Lucas, but they fucked it up. Indiana Jones is another one of these properties. The man can write stories. He can tell stories. He can connect you to characters. He can connect you to series of events. Stop trying to do what he does. And I get why they're making Indiana Jones movies. I understood why they made the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But if you can't get someone that can do what Lucas and Kasdan together did, leave it alone. Because you're not going to do it. You're going to fuck it up, which we've seen time and time again.
Absolutely. And the thing that's one of the things that's so brilliant about Lucas is almost every single one of his films is a political commentary.
Yeah.
Of some sort. However, you don't have to view it as such, right? You can watch his films as just enjoyable space opera or, adventure, archaeology.
Yep.
Right? You do not have to dive any deeper than that and you can still find enjoyment. If you choose to, it sounds cliche, but there's levels to his shit where however deep you want to go, you can find something that's there. And it is not ham-fisted. It is not shoved down your throat. It is there for you to look at if you want to dive into if you choose to, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And that's just the brilliance behind George Lucas versus they tried a little bit of political commentary in this one and it was just straight up ham-fisted shoved down your throat, which immediately made me go like, oh, are you kidding me? Very few people could tell a anti-Vietnam War story in the 70s. George Lucas found a way to do that. And it's just but he did it in such a way that you don't feel like it's like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to dive in, you can look at all the interviews and things like that. And he'll mention like, oh, yeah, no, this is an allegory for what happened during these time frames.
Yep.
But, some 6-year-old kid who's watching Star Wars or Indiana Jones for the first time isn't going to see that. They're going to see an adventure story that they fall in love with at a surface level. And then if they so choose, as, you've watched Star Wars, Indiana Jones, hundreds, dozens, thousands of times. I've watched them a lot as well. However deep you want to go into George Lucas's stories, you can, and you can find enjoyment. Yep. In no way, shape, or form does he ever force his own kind of like views or what he believes to be true or things that he, observed throughout history. Does he ever force it on you or push it to the forefront of his films? You have to go searching for it.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you cannot write a story like that, don't try to, because this had a feeling of where, oh, they're trying a political commentary and, oh, they're doing such a bad job of it.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of go beyond that too, like Steven Spielberg was originally going to be part of this film. He was going to direct it, but Disney should have, and again, this is a Disney problem. He should have left it the fuck alone when he said, nah, you know what? I can't do this. Like, instead of passing it over, and don't get me wrong, like the director, and I can't,
James Mangold.
Yeah. He's directed the guy's a great director, like kind of outrageously good when you think about what he's done, because Ford v Ferrari was a huge, Logan, Walk the Line. Like, he's done great movies, but this never works when you bring someone in after someone else has been making movie, because he came in and went, and he recognized, I can't do what Spielberg was going to do. So he backed away and he brought in his writers, the Butterworths, and let them write. I just want to say their name. Let them rewrite and make changes, which is how I'm sure we ended up with the fucking Siege of Sicily. So it's just like, what are we doing? And just stop it. Just stop it. Leave George Lucas alone. Leave the man alone. Leave Larry Kasdan alone. Leave Steven Spielberg alone. Fucking knock it off.
Yeah, because it's telegraphed. They telegraph all their goddamn shit.
Yeah.
Because as soon as Indy's talking about the siege of Sicily or siege of Syracuse, I'm like, oh, okay,
Yep.
give it away. Versus, if you go back to 1, 2, and 3, what Indy is doing at the beginning of the movie has no way, shape, or form to do with what happens at the end of the movie.
Yep.
Like in the first, Raiders, he's talking about Neolithic architecture.
Yeah.
And then it comes up, go hunt for the Ark. In Temple of Doom, he's in, what is it, like China? Or
yeah.
Singapore or somewhere?
Yeah.
And ends up plane crashed in India.
Yeah.
And then last one with the Holy Grail, like he's on his own call and he gets his dad's diary. Like he's just teaching his course. He doesn't have a job planned. Yep. And so this one is lectures about the siege of Syracuse.
Yeah.
But oh, okay. Well done, guys.
After we've chased the time dial.
Yeah, after we've chased the time dial that Archimedes made. It's like, oh, way to telegraph everything that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that bothered me too. That fact that, because that's the one thing about Indiana Jones, he ends up on all these adventures, but he never wants to.
Yeah.
Like, he's not trying to. He's just doing an archaeology shit or he's teaching, but he ends up getting pulled in by someone else, which they tried to do with Helena in this, but it just didn't work because he was already neck deep in it. You know what I mean? Like, he was already so deep because he was involved in the original capture of the dial, and he caused his friend to go nuts by having it, right? And still storing it. It's a good point. I didn't think about it that far through, but like, he should have been, all we should have been focused on is him retiring.
Yeah. He's retiring, and I would have taken it so far as, Mads Mikkelsen has half the dial.
Yeah.
He either found the other half or he got his hands on the half that, they had at the beginning, and he's looking for the second half. And now it becomes, we need Indiana Jones to come out of retirement, use your archaeology knowledge, your knowledge of Syracuse, Archimedes, you worked with Baz, help us find the other half because we do not want this National Socialist to get it.
Well, and I would have been even, to take it even a step further, I love that he already has it. Make that be the twist, that Indiana Jones already has the half. So we already have both halves in play. We need that fucking dial that they went down. We need the map.
The extra piece, yeah.
The extra piece that they went into the Roman
tomb to get.
Or that's what, yeah. And that can be the twist of, they come to Indiana to find the other half, and he's like, okay, well, I don't need to, and he's all nonchalant about it, right? Because he knows where that fucking thing is, but nobody else knows that he knows. That would have been amazing. She comes or they come, and it's like, we got to keep him from getting the other half, so we need to go find it. And he's like, no, you don't need to worry about it. Well, he's already got half. You don't need to worry about it. That would have been a great twist. And then somewhere along the line, what they do is they drag him into chasing the dial piece, because he's like, well, that'd be interesting, and I'll go with you. And then even the way they drug him into it, the fact that it's his goddaughter and he's trying to protect her, now he goes and by proxy they find that thing, and we got to keep him from getting the other half. Now we can drop the bomb that he's got the other half. Oh, dude, that would have been way better.
Yeah, I mean, you can follow the same formula, over and over again.
Yeah.
The problem is when you try and freestyle,
against
someone who is probably one of the best storytellers that we've ever seen, and that goes like above and beyond movie and film, just storytelling. Who tells a story that has rings upon rings of complexity, but all fits together as one big long story. I mean, it's like watching a 5-year-old try and, play basketball against LeBron James. You can tell the difference, and it's so ham-fisted that you're like, oh,
yeah,
gosh, it's almost better to not even make it.
Yeah.
To the point where it was just like, I can't believe that someone somewhere said, oh yeah, this is a good idea, let's do it.
No shit. Like, how does it get to the editing room and everybody's like, this is gonna be great?
Because you have to think that the people who were assigned this project understand Indiana Jones.
I would hope.
I mean, you would hope so, that they watched it, they grew up. How could someone say, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be it. This is it. This is what I enjoyed as a kid."
Especially after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull shit the bed so bad. Like, you can't look back at that and go, that didn't work because of this. Let's do that shit again. Maybe not a whole movie of it, but let's do that shit again. Like, you can't, there's no way that you can honestly say, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, this
aliens didn't work. Let's try time travel.
Yeah. And so do it so heavy handed that it's ridiculous. It was just, what the fuck are you doing?
Especially when, you've established in kind of the first 3 movies that Adenoid Hinkle in real life was an avid searcher of the occult.
Yeah.
You can make literally something about the Lance of Longinus that they were looking for at the beginning.
Yeah.
That could have been a whole movie. Or you could take it a step further and you could go like Shroud of Turin.
Yeah.
Right? There's artifacts out there that that cross the line in between like real and mystical, because we don't know enough about what is happening, that you can build it on, that don't involve any of this time travel nonsense.
Yeah.
You get. So it's like, God, why?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was always, and they had the line in this one too, where he talks about this needs to be in a museum. Like, that was always the other thing about Indiana Jones, is he never believed in the mystery. He didn't care about that shit. And he wasn't after fame and fortune. He just wanted people to be appreciative of the the artifacts of the past and like the history of the world. And that's not what he was doing in this one. Like, it was like, it started out him protecting Helena, but then it turned into like, well, I want to see what Archimedes figured out. I want to see how this works and what it does. No, fuckers, that's not who he is. He doesn't give a shit about that. He would have been like, this would be great in a museum because Archimedes was awesome and this is a cool tool. We don't know enough about how any of his shit worked and whether it actually was, they built this stuff, but here, let's do it. Right.
Yeah.
So it just, they fundamentally changed the character a little bit too on me. But again, that's what you go back when you bring in writers that just didn't. And I think this is the dangerous part of the Hollywood today, is we live in this remake, reboot, continuation, sequel world right now, where almost everything is, we don't really have a lot of original movies because every studio wants to make a blockbuster. But if every movie's a blockbuster,
no movie is.
Exactly. It all sucks. And eventually it's going to be shitty because you're just forcing things that don't work. Whereas the old formula was, we'll make and get lucky with a blockbuster, or we'll make something that could be a blockbuster, and hopefully it will be, in order to finance normal movies that aren't going to break the bank at the box office. They're going to make, maybe they break even, maybe they make a little money. If we get lucky, we'll have a surprise hit on our hands like The Matrix, and we'll blow it out of the fucking water. But most of the time they made blockbusters that they knew would be successful in order to finance normal movies to give a chance. We don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world of, it has to fucking make $1 billion or it's not successful. And that's a bad way to make movies. That's not, because you're not going to do it. And now we're so watered down with these epically huge productions that it's fatigued. And and don't get me wrong, look, the superhero world, the comic book world, the video game world has only added to that and made it worse. Like, the success of Marvel made it worse because they've done so well with so many movies that's the expectation, right? Most of us expected to go see a good movie. Now we expect to see an amazing movie, and it's unrealistic. Then you add on the fact that you have things like this where you're taking, like you said, three of the most successful storytelling, movie making, dialogue writing trios in Lawrence Kasdan, George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg, and you're trying to recreate what these 3 geniuses did. And all 3 geniuses that knew their limitations. Larry Kasdan, not a great storyteller, but a phenomenal dialogue writer. He can make you believe you're watching 2 people interacting, or people interacting in a realistic way. George Lucas can tell some of the greatest, most nuanced, deep stories from a big picture out there. Guy can't write dialogue to save his fucking life, and he can't fucking direct a movie to save his life either, for the most part. unless he gets lucky like Star Wars. But even Star Wars, the original Star Wars, did not have great direction. It just was so different and new and had such great storytelling that it worked. And then you take Spielberg, who's one of the greatest directors on the planet. You combine those three people and you end up with an Indiana Jones level for 3 movies. Then you take people, and I'm not shitting on Butterworths. They wrote great movies. I'm not shitting on Mangold. He's directed amazing movies. But you cannot catch lightning in a bottle and recreate what the people that redefined the movie industry in a lot of ways. You can't just expect people to step in and do that. But that's what the world we're living in. This is a product. And I'll give them, this movie got closer than the last time they tried to do it. But it still didn't get it because there's no way for you to pick up Indiana Jones and go, I know exactly what Lucas and Kasdan and Spielberg were thinking when they created this character and how this worked. You have to fill in holes that you just don't have. And they didn't. They missed the boat in a lot of ways. It was a valiant effort. Yeah. But let's not be valiant. Effort. Let's fucking do it. If you're going to do it, right? Like, go meet with Lucas. Consult with the man. He'll meet with you. He'll consult with you. He cares about these characters. He'll talk to you. Spielberg was on. Keep him on as a producer. You know what I mean? Or at least go meet with him. Kasdan can't meet with him anymore. Yeah. But you meet with his kid, who's just as good as he is at dialogue. Anyway, that's I kind of had an out-of-body experience there for a moment because it drives me crazy, the world of Hollywood we live in right now.
Well, also to go back to, or to piggyback off of your thing, like Lucas made 3 Indiana Jones movies, and then he stopped.
Yeah, that's fair.
He stopped. He didn't have a story to tell, so he didn't tell a story.
Yeah.
He made 3 Star Wars movies, and then he stopped for 20 years until the technology got up to where he wanted it to be so he could finish telling the story.
Yeah.
And that is a huge thing with Hollywood is they don't have the patience.
Yep.
I mean, and you see it primarily with great storytellers. Another one I shit on, the company all the time, but Walt Disney was a phenomenal storyteller to the point where he would stop telling a story even if it was at the height of merchandise making money because the story's been told. And that would be his reason for refusing to tell anything else. And people couldn't understand, these money-making business type people couldn't understand. You're making money, make money. And now Hollywood is all about making money. So they're not patient. They won't stop telling a story. And that's why we have Ant-Man and Quantumania, is because they won't stop telling a story when they have nothing left to tell.
Yep.
Or to put it on hold and come back when what they're able to do it as well. Another good example, even though we shit on his movies quite frequently, is James Cameron.
Yep.
Same thing. We'll wait until technology is where he wants it to be to tell his story. And that's the thing, is you have now a movie industry that is in no way, shape, or form patient.
Yeah.
It's every year we got to have 3 big blockbuster films. We will, if they don't make money, we will outproduce so that it makes it up on the back end.
Yep. I'm with you. It's all about money.
Mm-hmm.
They fuck it up instead of creating good shit. But with that, let's move on to the last topic, and we can keep this one short, and then we'll rate on it. But fucking Harrison Ford still has it. I don't give a shit what anybody said. There's no question why this man was the most bankable actor for almost 2 decades. Like, even at 80 whatever years old he is so charismatic, and I want to watch him in everything. And I'm glad he's making a resurgence. Like, he's got this movie. He did the Star Wars movie, episode 7 or whatever. But like the one that I told you about Apple TV's show, Shrinking, the one where he's a therapist. The guy's come back and he's going to be part of Marvel now soon. And like, good for Harrison Ford. And of all the shit that went on in this movie, like, he still was amazing. And he was still Indiana Jones. Like, I was laughing so hard. Like, we talked about him fucking bitching and moaning as he's climbing up that hill. And the other thing that I love about an Indiana Jones movie, it doesn't have much to do with Harrison Ford, but I love that they kept the sound of the punch, that it sounds like someone's getting hit with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
It's the best part. Like, it sounds like you just destroyed a man when you hit him. It's great. But Harrison Ford is the shit. He's just the man.
Oh, I loved it that they like kept chase scenes similar.
Yeah.
Right. To where, I mean, even though he's 85, he's still hitting somebody with a ladder in the throat and then throwing it down the ground to create a barricade. He's trying to punch out a window to get out. Like he goes back to these instincts.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, I was like, oh, okay, like when we had that first initial kind of scene in the archives.
Oh yeah.
I was starting to see the light. And then we had to see poor Harrison Ford run. And I was like, and then they brought it with John Rhys Davies running too, and just old man shuffle. And I was like, oh, because at that point, I feel like you have to take a little bit of artistic license. Let him walk. Let him walk, because that little old man shuffle run ruined it. It just took me right back down to like bottom line. Because I was like, oh, it looks so bad. And, you know, it's not to, you know, poke fun at them, because they're both getting on in years. They're old. Props to them for still being able to walk. When I'm 42, I'm not going to be able to move.
No shit.
But I was sitting there, I was like, oh, just let him walk. Let him move in a way that makes him still look like Indiana and Sala.
Yeah.
Because this is just, it was a little cringy. And I was like, ooh, why are you doing this to these poor old men? They're tired. Let them rest. Let them just walk and move, because you didn't need to have the extra running in there.
Yeah. Well, and to give the man credit, when he's 81 years old, like legit 81, and he looks good. Like,
he looks great.
Like when he pulls his shirt, I was like, dude, I'm fucking 42 and I look like hell. Like, this dude's 81 years old, legit 81 years old, almost 82, I think. And the guy looks, in fact, he turns 81. He's not quite. Wait, 1942. We're in 2023.
Yeah, it's 81.
So he'll be 81 in on the 13th of July.
No, happy birthday, Harrison Ford.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, he's 79, 80 years old making this movie. Dude,
he looks fantastic.
42? I'm 42 years old, and I can barely walk up and down my stairs without going, my knees fucking hurt. So for 81, and he's riding a horse, and he's and I was laughing. There was a story where he's talking about like one of the stuntmen or something tried to help him up on the horse, and he's like, fucking get away from me. I'm doing it. Because he's like, I want it to look like it was hard. Because it is. I'm old.
Yeah.
But yeah, kudos to that dude. He's still funny as balls. Like, some of my favorite interviews have with Harrison Ford, because the guy's hilarious. He's just dry. He just, like, watching him make fun of Ryan Gosling during their run for
Blade Runner.
The Blade Runner sequel. Like, dude, I've never laughed so hard. He's like, yeah, I told him we need to get Ryan what's your last name again? I love Harrison Ford. Like, he's one of my heroes when it comes to like just being able to do it and do it well. Yeah. So I'm glad he still has it. But I wanted to end on that note, giving kudos to Harrison Ford, because
absolutely,
the guy's the shit. Cool. Should we rate this thing?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna go first because I know you're gonna probably give this a really low rating.
Yeah.
Oh God, I was excited. Like you said, the previews made this look like it was gonna be Indiana Jones, and for an hour and probably 50 minutes, it was. It was very good. It felt like Harrison Ford. There was even the big giant National Socialist that he had to fight at some point. You know what I mean? I loved everything about it. It was very nostalgic. It was fun. I had a great time. On the bookends, though, it was rough because it was either bad CGI and an unnecessarily long action sequence, or it was doing exactly what the previous one did wrong again, without and not learning from that mistake of, this is a problem. You shouldn't have done it this way, and you could have done it better. I mean, we fucking figured out at least 2 ways to come close in an hour-long podcast. So I just feel like there were mistakes made, and I get why, but I wanted to enjoy it more than I did at the front and the back. In the middle, Loved it. It was great to see Harrison Ford again. It was great to see Jonathan Rhys-Davies. It was great to see, even at the very end, like, I guess kind of they redeemed themselves to me a little bit too, because after they get back from the shenanigans of time travel, we get Karen Allen and Marion and the kind of the callback to "It Doesn't Hurt Here." And I was like, that's so great. I was okay with that scene. Like, it felt good. But going to Sicily and the siege, it just was, I can't even say it. It pissed me off so bad. So the beginning and end, near the end, were really bad. Everything else in it, I was okay with and happy with. With that said, I'm going to give it a 3. I wanted to give it more because there's 3 movies at the beginning of this series of movies that are 5s to me. No questions asked. They're 5s. I'll just throw that out there. 3 of the best movies I've ever watched, and I'll watch them anytime, anywhere that I can. This one tried real hard, but ended up failing. But it, to me, was still entertaining. I had fun. The nostalgia alone carried it a lot for me in the middle. So I'm going to give it a 3, but that's as high as I can give it and feel good about myself. So there you go.
My turn.
Your turn.
All right. So, like, I've already said enough about the beginning and the end. And JJ just, echo chamber, same exact thing. Stupid. For me, the middle followed the Indiana Jones formula, but it also threw in every single part of Indiana Jones that they could think of, right? So you have New Short Round, who meets Helena the same way Short Round meets Indy. And New Short Round is not as good as Old Short Round. Then you have a big guy that Indy punches and he just stares at him. Not as good as boxing, German in Raiders. Not as good as giant Kali disciple in Temple of Doom, but still okay. He's got the nice little buzz cut. Looks like a professional wrestler. So you have like these tropes that are all part of Indiana Jones, but they don't fit in where they put them.
Yeah.
And it once again, it goes back to like a bunch of amateurs trying to recreate something that happened without asking the guy who did it. It's like trying to go, repaint the Mona Lisa, but not talking to Da Vinci about how he did it.
That's fair.
And so it just feels wrong, even though they followed the formula. And there was moments where I was like, okay, that's Indiana Jones. Like the chase scene on the horse and the motorcycle and crossing through people and finding a creative way to get out of trouble. And then, getting a head start on the bad guys, but somehow the bad guys still find you and they're there when you, do the treasure hunting for them, which means that if you just left it alone, you probably would have been okay.
Yeah.
So there's these Indiana tropes that are like, okay, that's Indiana Jones. Like, that's what I know. But then they would throw an extra little bit here. And it got to the point where I was even upset about the bridge, right? Because you have this bridge in the Cave of Dionysus where it breaks because you have a Short Round and big old National Socialists who fall in.
Yeah.
But the bridge is fine
when they come back.
13 minutes later when they come back.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh. So it was just at that point I was so upset that I was looking for stuff to nitpick.
Sure.
Because it was like you took, like you said, one of the greatest film characters of all time, and you have the original actor. You can do stuff with him. He knows the character, and you turned out this, and it was even to the point where there was far more violence in this one than you see in previous Indiana Jones movies. You can blame that on the times or whatever, but a lot of the violence that happens in the original 3 is done like kind of off screen.
It's true.
Where you don't ever see it. You see a couple, people get shot here or there, but it doesn't happen a whole lot where it's right up in your face.
Yeah.
So I was like, there was stuff like that where they didn't capture the original spirit. I'm going to give this a 1.5.
Woo.
I can guarantee I will never be watching this again.
Yeah.
It was just, it was a great idea that went terribly, terribly wrong. And at that point, someone should have come in halfway through and be like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah. I agree. I can't disagree. How about that? I can't disagree.
There we go.
And I will say this, to your point, I didn't say whether I won't watch this again. There's no point for me to watch this again. It doesn't add any value to the first three, which again, I can say that I'll watch anytime, as many times as you can want to watch it. I'll never say no because they're just that good. Yeah. So I am with you. Another one that bothered me since you talked about it in the cave was there was methane in the cave, and then all of a sudden there wasn't methane in the cave. Like I was like, he's like, don't breathe it in, and they're all hacking and coughing, and I'm like, dude, enough methane inhalation, and you just went down to technically where the methane should have been coming from, further into it, like they would have passed out and died. Like,
great puzzle, Archimedes.
Yeah. Oh shit. I'm like, Jesus, whatever. Yeah. So it got a little willy-nilly and a little weird there at the end. Probably even more than I gave it credit for. So, but yeah, Indiana Jones. It's a good time. We talked a lot about this one, but I kind of went off a couple of times on Hollywood itself. So there's that.
And Hollywood deserves it.
Sure. It'll make a nice sentence in your blurb, I'm sure. With that, if they're not listening to us right at the moment, where else can they find us, my friend?
Oh, I'll happily point them the direction. So thank you for joining us for our review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Throughout the franchise, we have seen Indiana travel to the Amazon, Egypt, India, and even the ruins of an ancient Mayan civilization. It was refreshing to have a little change of pace and have Indiana travel back in time to watch history unfold. Such a stupid plot move. This has been probably the most JJ and I have varied on a movie. So let us know where your verdict lies in the comments below, if you're more on my side or more on JJ's. If you had some fun listening or watching, or even cracked the smallest of smiles as we made fun of Hollywood and everything it stands for, and want to look for more content, we can be found wherever you get your podcast currently, although we will probably be switching only to YouTube, as JJ said earlier. We are also on Patreon. Shout out to Billy Mitchell's Joystick, our current patron and favorite listener. We appreciate you and your brand of wild, crazy fun. Patreon is where all the action is, guys. So if you're interested in playing a more prominent role in voting on content or even requesting your favorite movies, Patreon is where you can join in the back end of What's Our Verdict content creation. We really appreciate the support with that, and I will kick it back to JJ, the Sultan of Swap, the King of Crash.
That's right. Thanks, Alec. Speaking of Patreon, I literally just posted for our current patron to tell us what quarter 3 movie we're requesting, because that is one of his perks is he gets to pick one movie every quarter that makes us watch whatever it is, and he's picked some doozies and some great ones. Like we've had some fun and we've had some
tears,
not so much fun, and some movies I can't unsee, and then movies that I wish I'd known about a long time ago. So we've done that. So everybody should do that and go check it out, because you can make us watch movies. We love that shit. So
we won't say no to anything.
It's true.
Not on the Patreon.
Yeah, that's fair. Yes, we will. But not movies. I'm not watching porn and talking about it with Alec.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, no.
I'm just not doing it. So, but the closest we got to that was Pink Flamingos. So
if it has an IMDb.
Exactly. Don't say that. Some porn have IMDb.
What is with?
I know. Yeah, like blatant sexual content, I'm out. And I like sex, but it's not. I'm not doing.
I don't want to talk.
It's got to be a movie.
Yeah.
No matter how weird and ridiculous it is, it's got to be a movie.
That's
it. Can't be. Yeah, one of those. So there it is. With that, we appreciate you tuning in. We will catch you on the next one.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic out.
Porn has IMDb credits? What?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Whoa!